Henry Shen loved my Imperial Elder Sister, but in the year he fell from favor, I forced him to be my kept man and made him endure endless humiliation. Years later, he raised an army and rebelled. The day the Iron Cavalry crashed into Shangjing, Father Emperor bowed and shoved the Imperial Elder Sister into his arms. Henry Shen only smiled faintly, then mentioned me. Well, does Emma Wang not dare to come out to meet me? They said the first thing Henry Shen did after seizing power was put a 1,000-tael bounty on my head. But he did not know, I was already dead. The day the Shen family's Iron Cavalry smashed into Shangjing, Father Emperor, trying to save himself, thrust the Imperial Elder Sister forward. He grinned obsequiously. General Shen, no, new Emperor, you used to favor Sophia Wang. Could you spare me for Sophia Wang in the throne? Sophia Wang bowed her head, offering a fragile white neck, pitifully delicate. Henry Shen didn't answer. His sword was still wet with blood, but I knew he would agree. He had always favored my Imperial Elder Sister. In the vast city of Shangjing, he kept everyone at a cold distance, everyone except her. Now, Henry Shen smiled, eyes lazy and unreadable. Where is Emma Wang? What, does she not dare come out to meet me? I froze. I had never imagined he would ask about me. All of Shangjing knew he loved the Imperial Elder Sister. He had lavished his gentleness on Sophia Wang. They were a perfect match. But in the year he fell, I forced him to become my kept man. I ruined everything. Now he had the throne and the beauty at his side. Why would he care whether I lived or died? Henry Shen's smile curved, and he continued. Back when the Shen family was framed and their household searched, the 9th princess forced me to be a kept man in her residence. Kneeling in the snow for punishment, the beatings and the insults, none of that was new. He half smiled. Tell me, Your Majesty, shouldn't the 9th princess now kneel in the snow a few nights? Let her try the numb, near-unconscious cold for a while. My hands tightened without thinking, my chest ached and words failed me. So his question about me was only about revenge. Father Emperor breathed a sigh of relief. His eyes darted. He stammered. So the general hates the 9th princess, but she... Before he could finish, Sophia Wang snatched a guard's sword. The blade cut Father Emperor. Blood sprayed onto the floor. She trembled and let the bloody sword fall. She watched Father Emperor open his eyes, cough blood, and collapse. Then she knelt slowly before Henry Shen. She clung to his sleeve, sobbing. Father Emperor indulged in alchemy and ignored the people's will. He has long since lost the people's hearts. Sophia is willing to put family aside for justice. I only beg to remain at the general's side as an ordinary maid, to care for him day and night. As for the Imperial Younger Sister, she bit her lip, hiding the truth. She fled Shangjing with the consort before the general entered. The air froze. Henry Shen smiled faintly, then reached out and lifted Sophia Wang. His smile never reached his eyes. His face went cold and unreadable. Is that so? Very well. Issue the order. Whoever finds the 9th princess will be rewarded with rank and 1,000 taels of gold. He grabbed me. What did he intend to do? Revenge? Vengeance? But I was already dead. I remembered the year the Shen family was framed. The men were executed and the women exiled. I begged the court for mercy, but everyone avoided the Shens. Even Sophia Wang looked on with indifference and smiled. The Shen family are cast-offs now. Why should I bother to save them? I pinched the center of my palm and said nothing. When the Shens were powerful, she flaunted Henry Shen's favor like a trophy. All of Shangjing knew. They were lovers in all but a marriage certificate. Then overnight, they were discarded. How ironic. Later I knelt before Father Emperor all night and begged him to give Henry Shen to me. I put on airs and acted spoiled. Henry Shen has always disliked me. He lost my sachet, mocked my handwriting, and shamed me in front of all the ladies of the capital. I sniffed. Now the Shen family has betrayed the state and deserves death. Let him be my kept man. Wouldn't that humiliate the Shen family even more? Besides, if your Majesty spares him, you will only show your magnanimity to the world. I pouted and cooed to Father Emperor. I never had a motherly consort, only Father Emperor to rely on. Please, grant me this. But I was not Father Emperor's favored daughter. Before his accession, my mother had been his most beloved concubine. Emperors distrust in-laws. Concerned about my maternal grandfather's military power, my mother lived on eggshells. A framed poisoning plot made her a deposed consort, and she lost all favor. As the daughter of a deposed consort, I was coldly treated and uncherished. The Shen family had been loyal for generations. Perhaps Father Emperor feared that searching their house would stir unrest. Or perhaps, when he was still a prince, he'd felt a faint affection for my mother. He agreed. When I dragged Henry Shen out of the dungeon, he had a raging fever. Tortured by many punishments, there was no unscarred flesh left on his body. Lady Shen wept and kowtowed to me in the prison, thanking me for saving him. I only laughed coldly. Save him? He should thank his handsome face for giving him the chance to serve as my kept man. Only then did they understand what fate awaited Henry Shen when he left the prison. General Shen glared at me, eyes fierce enough to devour me. He barked. Henry Shen, if you still have one shred of Shen bone and honor left, leave with dignity. Do not live on as someone's plaything. At the time, I didn't understand what was wrong with surviving. Some people spend every ounce of strength simply to stay alive. The first thing I did after bringing Henry Shen to the princess's mansion was force him, barely dressed in a thin robe, to kneel in the winter snow. I threw brushes and paper before him and looked down from above. Henry Shen was once the most handsome young gentleman in Shangjing, famed for his handwriting. Even Father Emperor praised the vigor and spirit of his strokes. Henry Shen had once made me a laughingstock. That year, at Father Emperor's birthday, I had just been brought out of the cold palace. Sophia Wang proposed a contest of the 4 arts and pushed me into the calligraphy round. Everyone was curious about me, the princess raised in the cold palace. Someone asked Henry Shen how my handwriting was. He glanced up and said coldly, "Clumsy characters, hardly fit for refined company." For a while, the noble ladies treated me as a joke. Now I put on an arrogant, spiteful act and forced Henry Shen to kneel in the snow all night, writing until I was satisfied. He knelt through the night. Whatever he wrote, I picked apart and scorned. Only when he collapsed from fever was he taken to a side chamber by the servants. I deliberately made things hard for him. I abused him. Because from the moment I pulled him out of the dungeon, Father Emperor's spies watched my every move. Only if I treated him harshly would Father Emperor believe I harbored no lingering feelings, and that I had truly spared him out of magnanimity. I dared not call a physician or show care. Under the pretense of having a cold, I had a trusted maid slip him medicine in secret. Under my unending humiliation, Henry Shen became my kept man. Did he hate me? I do not know, but perhaps he did. My spirit was tethered to Henry Shen's side. Everyone assumed that after toppling the old court, he would take the throne himself. He did not. He placed Prince Yongji's young son, James Wang, on the throne. The chubby round boy's eyes lit when Henry Shen returned to the palace. "Brother Shen, have you seen my ninth sister?" He was the last blood of Prince Yongji. When Prince Yongji was executed for colluding with the Shen family, his wife hid James among the dead and smuggled him out in the chaos. The 7 or 8-year-old child had to assume a false name and hide. Life was hard. 3 years earlier, when I first went to my fief in Liangzhou, I found this child who looked a little like me. Skin and bones, filthy, lying in water and barely breathing, like a dying kitten. Henry Shen was silent for a moment. His voice was cold and distant. "No." Before he could continue, Sophia Wang entered with measured steps. The throne still belonged to the Wang family, and Sophia Wang sat secure as the Imperial Elder Sister. She carried herself with the bearing of her rank and asked gently, "Why would His Majesty seek that criminal? She left Shangjing long ago and fled with the consort. If there is important news, His Majesty can tell the Imperial Elder Sister." At the sight of Sophia Wang, the chubby boy immediately bristled. "You're lying. We deliberately took the long route through Liangzhou. The 9th princess wasn't there at all. If she's not in Shangjing, where else could she be?" As if determined to cut ties with Sophia Wang, James snapped, "Besides, my 9th princess is no traitor. You're not my Imperial Elder Sister. Don't pretend to be close to me." Sophia Wang's eyes reddened. She looked fragile and beautiful, tears welling in her pretty eyes, pity involuntarily stirring in those who watched. She turned to Henry Shen, utterly wronged. "Surely the general doesn't disbelieve me?" Henry Shen didn't answer at once. After a while he said calmly, "The 9th princess did flee. The new emperor has just taken the throne and is burdened with affairs. For now, His Majesty should remain in the palace. Tomorrow, I will have Grand Tutor Meng come to court and instruct His Majesty in proper rites. Henry Shen's words confirmed my status as a traitor. He added, the Imperial Elder Sister is indeed His Majesty's Elder Sister. As the realm's model, His Majesty should follow ritual. He should address the Imperial Elder Sister as Imperial Elder Sister. James Wang's eyes widened as if hearing something impossible. He took a step back, teeth clenched, tears in his eyes, glaring fiercely at Henry Shen. I trusted you so much. If it weren't for finding the 9th princess, who would have come to Shangjing for this worthless emperor? James had followed Henry Shen to Shangjing, hoping to find me. He treated Henry Shen like an elder brother and expected Henry to stand by him no matter what. Instead, he met Sophia Wang. She was Henry Shen's favorite. No one could let her be mistreated in front of him. He had always indulged Sophia Wang. James stormed out in a rage. Eunuchs and maids chased after him, causing a commotion. The hall emptied. Sophia Wang stepped beside Henry Shen and spoke softly, affection in her voice. His Majesty is young and I am not close to him. General, I hope you will look after him in the future. Henry Shen was silent a moment, then asked only, where is Emma Wang? This time I was truly surprised. I had not expected Henry Shen to despise me so much. He didn't even cherish this rare moment alone with Sophia Wang. He asked again about my whereabouts. Sophia froze too, then forced a strained smile. Didn't the general ask before? She said. The princess fled with the consort. But now she clearly saw Henry Shen did not believe that excuse. She lowered her eyes and spoke quietly. However, I do know where the princess went. Her gaze was clear. She bit her lip. Father Emperor has passed away. The new emperor is cold toward me. I have no one else to rely on. I can tell the general where the princess is, but I have a request. She clutched Henry Shen's robe, her fingers slender and soft. I want the general to marry me. By the candlelight, Henry Shen's expression grew colder. After a moment, he said, very well. A faint smile creased Sophia Wang's lips. I sighed. Why make such a fuss? Even if it weren't about me, Henry Shen would agree to anything Sophia asked. Watching them wrapped in tenderness, I turned away to hide it. How strange. I pressed my hand to my chest and lowered my eyes. I was already dead, a drifting wisp of a soul. Yet why did my heart still ache like this? As Sophia Wang moved closer, a deputy general called Henry Shen away. She stamped her foot in annoyance, but the joy between her brows could not be hidden. I hesitated, then followed as Henry Shen stepped out. Since the day I regained some awareness, I hadn't been able to stay more than 3 yards from him. I didn't understand why. It felt like a kind of confinement. Henry Shen dismissed the deputy and left the palace alone. He did not return to the Shen family or his new general's residence. He went to my princess mansion. The sign was streaked with dust. The mansion had long been empty. He stepped inside. Weeds grew everywhere. He followed old memories and finally reached my bedroom. He stood in the doorway a long time. Then he curled his fingers, dropped his eyes, and pushed the door open. I followed him in. My bedroom looked exactly as it had before. Even after so many years away, nothing had changed. I had supposed Henry Shen might come at night to take vengeance, or because he suspected I might be hiding nearby. But he smashed nothing. He destroyed nothing. He even brushed the dust from the writing desk carefully. I had not treated Henry Shen well. The huge princess mansion had been a nightmare for him. Back then, the whole capital knew my bad reputation. The 9th princess with the worst temper in Shangjing, already taking lovers before marriage. And Henry Shen had been made a laughingstock among the capital's scholars. Those men who once chased and flattered the brilliant Shen heir now mocked and despised the one unfit for a proper position. Kept man would be etched into his memory forever. A lifetime of shame. I thought Henry Shen would never return to this place. To him, the mansion was a nightmare. He cleaned my room carefully. When he lightly touched the study table, a scroll rolled off the edge and fell. Henry Shen picked it up and unfurled it. He froze. Curious, I leaned closer. When I saw the characters, I stepped back and instinctively wanted to flee. I had no body, yet in that instant even the tips of my ears felt hot. I remembered this piece of calligraphy. Henry Shen had taught me to write it. At that time our relationship had softened a little. He'd asked to see me in private and calmly explained why I had so often humiliated him. Henry Shen was perceptive. I could not hide things from him for long. The scars always showed. Fine medicine would inexplicably appear in his room. When I panicked and denied everything, he only curved his lips and changed the subject. "What are you doing, Your Highness?" He had come while I was practicing calligraphy. After that public humiliation at Father Emperor's banquet, I had resolved to work harder. But I felt guilty for some reason. I hid the crooked paper. "Nothing," I said. Henry Shen smiled as if he knew something, then looked up. "Your handwriting is not very good. Since you have time, let me teach you. Think of it as a bribe to treat me better later." I widened my eyes. When his hand covered mine, I came back to myself. His palm was warm. I watched the brushstroke one character after another. I pressed my lips together and said lightly, "I heard that day. You said my handwriting was ugly and unfit for refined company. I made a fool of myself in Shangjing for a long time. If not for that, I would not have worked so hard to practice." Henry Shen paused, then resumed as if nothing had happened. He smiled gently. "I did not realize you held a grudge. Then you must have missed the second half of my sentence." He set down the brush and looked at me earnestly, repeating the old words. "At the time I said your strokes were awkward and might not grace refined halls. The part you didn't hear was this. But your brushwork is bold. It balances light and dark. It is, in its rawness, an uncut jade." I looked into his eyes and said nothing. Actually, I had heard him then. When I heard the first half in public, I burned with shame at losing face before the one I loved. I had liked Henry Shen for a long time. While still in the cold palace, neglected and weak, I once stumbled and fainted on a palace path. It was Henry Shen, entering the court, who rescued me. After that, even though Father Emperor never favored me, no palace servant dared mistreat me again. Because of Henry Shen's second half of that sentence, I resolved to learn proper calligraphy. I looked at Henry Shen and spoke softly. "You know, I grew up in the cold palace with no tutors to teach me to read or write. Outside, the flowering crabapple trees were in full bloom." Henry Shen's eyes were serious as he asked, "Then do you want to learn?" I swallowed back the burning in my nose and nodded hard. From that day on, Henry Shen taught me to read. The 4 books, the 5 classics, records of the grand historian, military strategy, he taught me everything. The whole world knew that the famed Shen heir from Yanbei had fallen into disgrace as a kept man and been humiliated by the 9th princess. But there was one secret only the two of us knew. I no longer had to publicly punish him while secretly worrying. I no longer had to fear that, ignorant of the truth, he might hate me and break my heart. Because we were accomplices, even if one day we were exposed, we would be punished together. Something between Henry Shen and me seemed to have changed. Yet at the same time, nothing had changed. He never knew that the first characters he taught me to write that day were mounted on a scroll and quietly hidden away. That scroll held the obsession of my life. News of Emma Wang and Henry Shen's wedding spread fast. In just a month, everything was arranged. It was my first time seeing Henry Shen in red wedding robes. He looked like a noble tree in bloom, calm and handsome, just as I had imagined. I stood apart from the crowd and watched Henry Shen sit tall on his horse, facing the bridal sedan. I guessed he must have felt like any groom, happy through and through. After so many years, he finally married the one he loved. In the end, they were still tangled with each other. I knew I shouldn't keep watching. Being trapped near Henry Shen and watching him marry another woman with my own eyes was a kind of torture. But the sedan stopped. A maid beside Emma Wang called Henry Shen over. She lifted the curtain and hid her face with a fan, revealing a wrist stained with blood. Her eyes were red-rimmed. She murmured, "I bumped the hidden compartment earlier and cut my hand. The wound was shallow. Only a little blood showed." Yet to complain softly in front of the man she loved, the smallest gestures carried a woman's quiet, persistent affection. I smiled as I watched the two in their wedding finery. Even strangers thought they were perfect together. In such a match, my presence should not exist. I expected sorrow. But I was already dead. I could only watch without shedding a single tear. Henry Shen ordered someone to fetch medicine. 2 sprigs of herbs were brought forward. He spoke gently. "I remember. 5 years ago, during an autumn patrol, someone tried to assassinate the emperor. I fell from a cliff then. The pass was treacherous, and wolves prowled. Everyone thought he could not have survived. I slipped out and searched the forest all night. When I found him, he was bleeding and faint, surrounded by wolf carcasses. He muttered incoherently and nearly bled out. I had no medicine and cried in panic. Finally, I found some hemostatic herbs in the woods, crushed them, and applied them. My mother had grown up on the frontier and knew medicine. She died young. I learned only a little. I stayed with Henry Shen when he couldn't walk, terrified that beasts would find him if I left to fetch help. I dreamed of him being devoured. I couldn't explain why I left the cold palace without permission to search the patrol routes for him. So I hid my identity, pretended to be a palace maid, and spread word of Henry Shen's whereabouts. Now Henry Shen looked at Sophia Wang, his fingers curled lightly inside his sleeve. He smiled faintly. "And you found the hemostatic herbs for me. That herb reminds me of the past." Sophia Wang's expression froze. Her lips pressed together. She answered awkwardly, "Yes, that night I searched the woods for you all night. Luckily I found you." I stood stunned. Sophia Wang had clearly returned to the palace the day I went to the patrol lines. Under Henry Shen's gaze, she pinched one of the herbs and clumsily crushed it onto the wound. But she had the wrong plant. It was only a look-alike weed. She did not know medicine. Mistakes happen. What I could not understand was why Henry Shen would mistake such a simple herb. His face remained calm. "I only vaguely remember that the person who saved me was a woman. Later you came and said you were the one who saved me. You told me the Prime Minister Li's son was cruel and desired you. The late emperor planned to marry you to him. You begged me to spare you in consideration of past ties. So I protected you, so no one would dare harm you." He paused and looked at the crushed plant, smiling softly. "But I've long wanted to ask, was the woman who saved me truly you?" His smile faded. He spoke without expression. "You do not recall details and you cannot identify herbs. Then how did you so precisely find the herb that stopped my bleeding that day?" A sourness rose in my throat. Only then did I understand. Perhaps Henry Shen had no love for Sophia Wang. He protected her out of gratitude for a life saved. But the person who saved him was not Sophia Wang. She had taken my name. Sophia grew flustered. She realized the herb was wrong, but she quickly steadied herself. "I am not skilled in medicine. After I found you, I never left your side. It was a maid with me who found the herb." She hurriedly changed the subject and put on a pitiable expression. "Do you doubt me because you do not trust me? Or are you unwilling to marry me and so is looking for excuses?" Henry Shen did not answer. A deputy general who had been away hurried back. He leaned close and whispered to Henry Shen. Henry Shen's lashes trembled slightly. He closed his eyes and composed himself. He smiled faintly to soothe the still suspicious Sophia Wang. "Princess, you worry too much. You saw blood today. It is inauspicious. With the frontier at war, the wedding may have to be postponed a few days. You, being understanding, will surely sympathize with my difficulty." Sophia forced a smile. Henry Shen no longer questioned who had saved him the other day. For her, that was a relief. She wiped cold sweat from her brow and, despite the delayed wedding, pretended to be generous. "Of course." Henry Shen withdrew and left quickly toward the prison. I knew whom he was going to see. I heard what the deputy general said. The 9th princess is still missing, but the consort has been captured in Yongzhou. I sensed Henry Shen's hurried steps and sighed softly. They had found the consort. This was probably why Henry Shen hated me most. I forced a crooked smile. I followed Henry Shen, dazed. I remembered the year we went to Liangzhou. Shortly after I saved Henry Shen, the western tribes invaded. The Shen family had fallen. Only my maternal grandfather still held military power. In this vast empire, there were few generals left. To let my grandfather fight bravely at the front, Father Emperor granted me Liangzhou as my fief. My relationship with Henry Shen was delicate then. He seemed to sense that I liked him. Henry Shen went with me to Liangzhou that year. Those days were perhaps the sweetest of my life. He would straighten my cloak at night. He made me crabapple cakes. When I was ill, he never took off his clothes and cared for me. Sometimes I thought, if I were not a princess and he not a general, if we could be an ordinary married couple, how simple and good that would be. In my first year in Liangzhou, I had a heavy sword forged for Henry Shen. He had once been the spirited young general of the Shen family, riding with silver saddle, daring to ride alone into enemy camps. Now he was forced to stay by my side and could not use his sword. Half a year later, I received a secret letter from my grandfather. He said the emperor had noticed the relationship between Henry Shen and me. The emperor feared for his reign and might order a massacre. The pain of a household searched and a family wiped out loomed. Even with the frontier at war and few options at court, the emperor feared Henry Shen's grudge and resolved to eliminate him. All I could buy Henry Shen was time. Not long after, Father Emperor's secret edict arrived. It arranged my marriage to Kevin Li and summoned Henry Shen and me to the capital, Shangjing. That day was the flower festival, the grandest day for prayers. Liangzhou bordered the desert, yet the city was full of life. I wandered the bustling streets with him, my mind elsewhere. Street vendors pressed a 5-colored paper lantern into our hands. People wrote wishes on these lanterns and hung them on branches, praying to the flower spirit for blessings. I stood holding the lantern without writing. Henry Shen hesitated and asked, "What is it?" I only shook my head. "The wish I want the flower spirit cannot grant." Henry Shen's eyes curved. In jade crown and white robe he smiled. "You should just make a wish. Even if the flower spirit cannot grant it, I will find a way to make it happen for you." Warmth hid in his eyes. I looked into them but could not speak. I gripped the lantern and said softly, "I found the best craftsman and forged a long sword for you. I plan to give it to you on your birthday." Now I might never get that day. Henry Shen was silent, his voice husky. He was about to speak when the crowd swept us apart. I lost my footing. Pushed by the press, I almost fell. Someone moved against the flow and took my hand, the closest we had ever been. It was that year at the flower festival, when the crowd tore us apart. He held my hand tightly. The crowd buzzed and 1,000 lanterns rose. He suddenly lifted my veil and leaned toward me. It was a brief, tentative kiss. The evening breeze tangled our hair, his lips were flushed, his breathing uneven. He lowered his voice, eyes bright, more dazzling than all those lanterns. "Emma Wang, I used to be a general. I have never feared death," he said. "What I fear is skill without purpose. People left homeless. I fear living and no longer being able to protect those I love. I carry too many heavy chains. I thought that by surviving I could one day clear the Shen family's name. Then I met you." I stared into his eyes, briefly dazed. I understood. I said nothing. My eyes were wet. I gripped my palm to steady myself. I could hardly keep the sob in my throat. Why? Why choose to love me when I had no choice but to give you up? That day, when I returned to the mansion, I handed him the long sword. I spoke calmly. "Tomorrow morning, I want to eat the hawthorn cakes you make." Henry Shen looked surprised for a moment, then answered softly, "All right." But I knew the truth. There would be no tomorrow for us. On the road back to Shangjing, I deliberately detoured to Yongzhou. That was the Prince of Yong's domain. The Princess of Minghua was arrogant and had long been infatuated with Henry Shen. At first, when I forced Henry Shen to be my lover, she nearly rode to Shangjing to beat me. Our convoy was stopped in Yongzhou. The Princess of Minghua mocked me with a bright smile. I only smiled faintly, unmoved. Then I said warily, "I heard the Princess of Minghua has long liked the Shen attendant to the point where you and I are estranged. Fine. I am tired of this too. I will give the Shen attendant to you. Whether you keep him or send him away is for you to decide." Henry Shen froze. He clenched his teeth and looked at me in disbelief. He forced calm and ground out through his teeth. "Your Highness, what are you doing?" It was rare to see him angry. The suppressed fury reddened his features. Chief Lady Meng, sent by Father Emperor to watch me, frowned at my words. Her face dark, she warned. "Princess, the Emperor's decree was to bring the Shen attendant into the palace." I smiled and answered lightly, "A servant unfit for the public eye. What use is he to the Father Emperor? Or do you mean Chief Lady Meng now runs the realm, and even I must obey you?" My attendants and I left the mansion. The carriage was ready. Everything I had given Henry Shen was thrown out. The carriage had only gone a few paces when it suddenly stopped. I lifted the curtain and saw Henry Shen standing before it. The corners of his eyes reddened. Without blinking, he looked at me. "You know I..." His voice cut off. He closed his eyes and dropped all pride. He broke. When he spoke again, his voice was hoarse and raw. "Please, don't leave me. I only have you." I rolled my eyes, annoyed, and cut him off. "The Father Emperor has arranged a marriage for me. I am returning to marry. Do you not understand? I don't want you." I slowed my speech and repeated each word. I said, "I don't want you." Henry Shen stood rooted, those dark, silent eyes fixed on me. Pain flashed through them. That winter was cruelly cold. My fingertips trembled, and my voice was raw. He stood in silence for a long time. Snow fell from his long lashes. At last he said, self-mocking, "Fine." He staggered back, picked up the sword I had given him. He broke his ties and swore by the broken blade. His mouth set hard. He threw the snapped sword before me with indifference. Without looking back, he turned and left. I am grateful for the princess's past protection. From now on, Henry Shen and the princess have no more ties. I rode away from Yangzhou. Chief Lady Meng was detained by my attendants and could not send word out. I watched the city shrink behind us and felt nameless pain. This was the only plan I could think of. I sent a message to the Princess of Minghua, pleading for her help. Once I left, the Princess of Minghua would send Henry Shen to Yanbei, where the Shen family still had loyal men. He was right. He had never feared death. If he were to die, it should be an honorable death on the battlefield, not dying under an emperor's suspicion. But my tears would not stop. This was exactly what I wanted. Yet why did my heart ache so painfully? To cover Henry Shen's escape, I delayed my return to Shangjing. On the day I finally went back, word arrived that Henry Shen had defected. They said he had stabbed a guard and fled. Soon after, Henry Shen rallied his old troops in Yanbei and raised arms in rebellion. I was imprisoned in the palace. By then, Father Emperor was obsessed with alchemy, chasing immortality. Prime Minister Li held the real power. The paranoid ruler cut down loyal ministers only to serve others' ambitions in the end. With the Western tribes pressing and the Shen uprising, the realm faced troubles within and without. Prime Minister Li imprisoned me as a hostage and announced my marriage to his son. Henry Shen did not immediately seize Shangjing. He spent 2 years driving the Western tribes back. Yangzhou, Suzhou, every city the Shen army passed opened its gates and welcomed them. The people understood who truly protected them in chaotic times. The great house crumbled. This was where popular support lay. The dungeon door opened. Kevin Lee looked up and sneered, "To the victor go the spoils. If I die by your hand, I accept it." I had only met Kevin Lee a few times. He seemed refined and polite, but he was cruel. He seemed to enjoy torment. He had long held a grudge against Henry Shen. When I had forced Henry Shen to be my lover, Kevin had publicly mocked him, saying he had shamed his manhood. Henry Shen demanded bluntly, "Where is Emma Wang?" Kevin Lee hesitated, then realized. "So you're asking about the 9th princess? What's this? General Shen longs for his old role as a personal attendant?" He went on with relish. "General Shen once served the princess. I am the princess's consort. By the Southern Liang rights, a general should greet a consort as a wife with tea, shouldn't he?" His words did not anger Henry Shen. Seeing no reply, Kevin grew more malicious. "You wouldn't have fallen for her, would you?" Henry Shen's lashes fluttered. He raised his wrist and pointed his sword at Kevin Lee. "Don't talk nonsense." Kevin showed no fear. He met the blade and said loudly, "General Shen, why be angry? The 9th princess likes you too. What a lovesick woman. She went to great lengths to pull you out of the Shen family's ruin, yet she never dared let anyone know of her feelings. Sometimes even I think you should thank her. That secret imperial summons that should have been your death warrant. Who would have guessed she let you escape in Yangzhou?" Henry Shen could barely hold his sword. In a hoarse voice he repeated, "Where is she?" Kevin's eyes gleamed. He relished Henry's pain and hurried on, gripping the sword point as he spoke. "You don't know, do you? The 9th princess, Emma Wang, the one who saved you so many times, who loved you but never let you know, is already dead." Henry Shen's lips trembled, but no sound came. After a long silence he said blankly, "You are lying?" Kevin, delighted at seeing his pain, hurried on with rapid speech, staring hard at Henry Shen. "A year ago, the Western tribes almost broke into Shangjing. To resolve the threat, someone in court proposed a marriage alliance. I intended to keep Emma Wang in Shangjing to restrain you, but Sophia Wang climbed into my bed instead. Emma was imprisoned in the palace for a year, and in the end she agreed without complaint to the marriage. Guess why? Because then the capital spread word that you had fallen into the Western tribe's trap, that your life was in danger. Though I had agreed to the marriage alliance, I never meant to go quietly. A woman's sacrifice cannot buy peace. I had it all planned. Once I passed the city gate, I would abandon the carriage. I would go to Liangzhou, to Yanbei, to that endless stretch of yellow sand. I would find the troops my maternal grandfather left behind. Henry Shen taught me military strategy. Even if I could not deploy armies, I could hand out porridge and food to steady the people's hearts. By then, I might see Henry Shen. Maybe he would stand beside me on the battlefield. Even if he stayed angry and refused to see me, that would be fine. One day peace would come. When it did, I would explain everything to him, little by little. But for now, I hoped Henry Shen would never know any of this. I was already dead. It would not matter if Henry Shen hated me. If the world was at peace, why add to his pain? I hated that I could not rush over and cover Kevin Li's mouth, but I could do nothing. Henry Shen's voice was hoarse. Is she in Shirong? Kevin Li laughed, then changed tone. The capital is full of talk that today is General Shen's grand wedding to Sophia Wang. The general probably doesn't even know. This was your new wife's idea. On the day the 9th princess left for her marriage alliance, Sophia Wang came to me. She said Emma Wang had all her plans wrapped around you. Even if she married into Shirong, who knows if she wouldn't incite them to join with you to seize the southern Liang throne. The 9th princess thought she could escape Shangjing. She climbed into the marriage carriage full of hope. But one cup of poisoned wine, how easily that did the trick. As for the body, there were so many refugees outside the city, the starved, the sick, who could say which corpse it was? Henry Shen stepped out of the prison. The blood-stained sword struck the white snow. Wind and snow rose fiercer. Snow in Shangjing had come so early that year. His face went cold as he walked fast, then broke into a run. The biting wind slapped his face, whipping his robes and black hair. A snow-laden begonia branch bowed in the storm and brushed his shoulder. He felt nothing. I could not help but recall the year I first met him. The empress held a banquet for my younger sister's hairpin ceremony. The palace maids mocked me. Other princesses had mothers. I had none. That year I came of age, but no one remembered. I overturned a water jar, so the maids who mocked me couldn't finish their work and were scolded by the nanny. They always treated me badly, pinching and scolding, venting their grievances on me. That day I slipped out of the cold palace in the chaos. The ceremony was lively. I felt jealous and hid in a begonia tree. I watched without blinking as the empress pinned my sister's hair in a grand ceremony. I missed my mother too. The falling snow was cold and slippery. I slipped and fell, closing my eyes to brace for pain. Someone caught me. I had never seen anyone so handsome, tall and graceful, features open and clear. I blushed and stammered. From not far off came Sophia Wang's voice, curious, playful, like a girl seeing her crush. Are you the young master of the Shen family from Yanbei? Fearing my secret escape would be discovered, I panicked and fled. Henry Shen did not mind. He brushed the begonia from his shoulder and soon forgot. He did not know. In truth, that winter it was I who had first met him. Henry Shen came to Qian Hall. This hall had once held me prisoner. Now Sophia Wang lived there. He said nothing. He seized Sophia Wang by the throat. His voice was hoarse. I'll ask you one last time. Where is Emma Wang? Sophia, gasping, could not breathe. Her face flushed as she wrenched at Henry's hand. She fell to the side, hair in disarray, and forced out a few words. Are you insane? Seeing Henry's icy expression and the sword raised, she finally felt fear. She shut her eyes, trembling, tears falling, and cried out, She's dead. She's long been dead. She blinked back tears and pleaded, But I didn't do it. I swear I didn't. I have her keepsakes. I'll give them to you. I'll find them all for you. His gaze was cold as the bottomless deep, icy, impenetrable. After a long moment he spoke hoarsely, Lock her up. Before she could breathe, he said each measured word, slow slicing, quartering. I will think of a death that suits you. He walked out. Behind him, a great fire flared. Perhaps Sophia had knocked over a candelabrum in panic, or perhaps she thought burning would be preferable to torture. Henry watched the flames grow without expression. He ordered his attendants, Don't let her die easily. Flames licked branches outside the window, setting the 5 colored lanterns in the tree alight. Henry stared at one lantern. His eyes shifted, as if something occurred to him. Ignoring the scorching heat, he smothered the flame on the lantern. When he read the writing, his fingers trembled, and his breath caught. He looked sharply at the burning palace. He finally realized traces of me had once been everywhere here. The 5 colored lanterns with wishes, the begonia heavy with snow, the yellowed papers on the windowsill and desk, and countless familiar handwritings. The year in Liangzhou had been as beautiful as a mirage, a dream too short to bear waking. When the lantern burned, I finally read the words inside. Snow in Jiangnan, true to you until our hair turns white. I felt a sudden clarity. I finally understood why I still lingered in the world, because I still had an obsession. My wish then had been to go with Henry Shen to see the snow in Jiangnan. I had a promise I could no longer keep. The note burned. The promise was gone. I should fade from the world. I saw Henry rush into the blaze. The red flames almost swallowed him. Palace servants held him back. He watched, helpless, as flames devoured everything. His face was terrified, his eyes bloodshot. Everything burned. Only the broken sword remained, charred gray-black. He collapsed to the ground, clutching the sword's hilt like a drowning man clutching a last straw, sobbing uncontrollably. As my consciousness began to slip, I remembered the year the begonia bloomed, when Henry taught me to write. He had patiently and gently placed his hand over mine. No one knew my heart beat so fast then. The lines I wrote became the obsession of my life. Guanshan Jue, chaotic clouds fold in 1,000 layers, north and south of the river, snow. But Shangjing's winter had only cold. Henry Shen. You still haven't taken me to see the snow in Jiangnan. Extra. Henry Shen walked the world for 33 years. The first 23 were for himself. The last 10 were for Emma Wang. He had been the Shen family's unrivaled handsome son in Shangjing, the young general who lost on no battlefield in Yanbei. After his family was destroyed, he became a princess's consort. He was full of hatred. He hated the Son of Heaven. He hated the imperial family. He endured hardship, living for one thing, to avenge his parents. At first, he treated Emma Wang without full sincerity. Only later, when the truth was torn open, did he see that she, a single person who could hardly keep herself safe, still struggled for his sake. Other women feared he might not know their feelings, and so made them plain, but she alone gave her true heart, and did not dare let him know even part of it. The year in Liangzhou, while buying things at the market, he met a child selling flowers. The child asked, "Young master, which flower do you like best?" He hesitated, then without thinking said, "The begonia is very nice." His heart pounded. He frowned, trying to control it, but to no avail. After a while, with his heart beating faster, he seemed to hear a sigh within. "Admit it. You like her." He could not help but keep looking at her. When he came to himself, there was always a smile at the corner of his mouth, so often that even she began to notice. On the flower festival, he finally could not hold it in and revealed his heart. That day she handed him her long sword and looked seriously into his eyes. She made him swear not to kill himself, no matter what, and to live on. He carried too much. Even when his parents were beheaded, he had never thought to take his own life. He was never one to live only for himself. So he did not understand at the time. He only felt the vengeance for his family had not been achieved. The world was still unjust, and he had no right to die. Later, when he learned of her death and saw the broken sword after the fire, he sobbed uncontrollably and finally understood what she had meant. At that time, she had resolutely let him go and gone alone to Shangjing to face overwhelming imperial power. He avenged his family and helped place Prince Yongzhe's son on the throne. The first 23 years were for the Shen family, for revenge. But the following 10 years he moved like the walking dead. He remembered the vow he had made. He wanted to die. But Shirong prowled like predators, the court was treacherous, the new emperor was still young. He could not kill himself. He feared she would be angry with him in the afterlife. In the end, he returned to Yanbei. Alone with his single blade, clad in dark armor, and astride a furious steed, he stood guard in Yanbei, leaving no opening for any enemy. When he closed his eyes, he seemed to hear many people wailing. There was James Wang, there were the soldiers, and there were ordinary folk who had lived because of his mercy. He realized he had reached the end of his life. But in that instant, what he thought was wonderful. At last, he could see her. The end.